What is up guys, Vortex TCG here, and today I'm going to be showcasing you one of my favourite decks, pretty much ever since it came out in the Digimon card game, and that is DarkKnightmon. And my opponent is going to be playing Beelzemon, and if you're interested in the deck profile for this deck, it's already on the channel. I'll leave a link in the description and also put a card in the top right of the screen now. But anyways, let's get into the game. My opponent gets to start off first by going into the Impmon here, and he gets to gets to prepare to mill a couple of cards anyways. I go into Tumon in Raising, and then I just go into the DarkKnightmon, not the Deadly Axemon here, to do some searching because I'm going to need a lot of resources throughout this game. And he swings with one of the Impmons, and it's a Prime Memory Boost, so that slows him down a bit, and then he passes the turn with AI and Marco. Reveals top 4 and adds an Impmon. I had to check the AI and Marco because I thought it didn't say evil, but it does say evil, so that's perfectly fine. I promote the Tumon obviously because this deck is based around gaining memory, so we do not want that to happen. So I pop the memory boost, swing into the Impmon here. The reason why I do this is because I want to control the board, and I want him to get rid of the milling effect now, because if he mills something when the Tumon dies, obviously then he gets to gain the memory. So I go into a Nene here to do some more searching, but also give everything blocker, which is very pivotal for my following turns. I then add the DarkKnightmon X antibody to hand because I'm going to need a way to get rid of the AI and Marco, because quite frankly this card can be very annoying. It's the only real way they gain memory in this deck other than by discarding, and if I have the Tumon out he can't really do much about it. So he then has to play the Impmon to trash look at top 4 and then add a card I believe. Can't add any of them, so I'm feeling pretty good about that for sure. And so he passes me with 1 memory, but for me it doesn't really matter. I go into the Chikurimon here in Raising. I'm just asking how many cards are in the trash, because that's going to be very important, especially with like blast mode and stuff like that. So swinging to security with the Dark Knight, it doesn't die, so still got some survivability. So what I do here is I go into the Deadly Axe mode to Digicross for 2 to pass him with 1 memory. I look at the top 3 cards, I can add 1, and then I'll delete the Impmon. So feeling good about this situation because now I've got a blocker, and also he can't gain memory and he's stuck at 1. He can obviously go to 2, but yeah, so he draws first and then uses effect to put 1 from underneath. We got a bit confused there. So he puts 1 card at the top and then mills the top 2. Well, top 3 even, sorry. Uses blast mode to get rid of the Tumon, but doesn't gain the memory. Oh no, he does gain the memory because the effects order in that way. Then he goes into Balmon to trash top 3. Gains a memory and then passes the turn to me. So I go unsuspend and draw. At this point I'm worrying if I should bring up the Tumon because it can become a bit of a problem for me. But I think in this point, like, I need to apply some pressure. So at this point I'm definitely considering promoting the Tumon here. And it does have a lot of use that way because I also get a search, and that search can get me into another Dark Knight, a piece, and more. So it's a hard thing to consider essentially. So I promote the Chikurimon here. I swing with the Chikurimon and it doesn't die, which is the biggest problem for me because now I essentially have a Chikuri which is affecting me more than it's affecting him. And this is problematic because quite frankly, I can't allow him to gain even more advantage as he already is. So what I do here is that I swing with the Dark Knight into security. Probably should have done this as well because if there's a Beelzemon in security and I swing into it, that means I can't really get rid of his Balmon either. So probably not a great move from me here, if I'm being quite honest. Then we consider how we're going to end the turn here, because this is very important. Unfortunately though, as you know, I have the Chikurimon out in play, everything's very expensive for me, so I got to consider what will end the game essentially from this point onwards. So I'm just checking the costs underneath the Wizardmon, and I digicross the DarkKnightmon using Cavalier and the Skull Knight for a cost of 8. Digivolve and then delete the top 2, and then I feel pretty good at this point because it's a clear board. He needs to get rid of a lot of things to deal with this board. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about this situation, quite frankly. He's checking his trash to see if he's met the threshold on certain cards. So he hard plays the Balmon for 7, takes him to 0, goes into the Beelzemon here, uses AI and Marco's effects to gain 2 memory. And this is where the Tumon becomes very useful against this deck. Like, your opponent can't deal with everything essentially. So he does top 4, gets to play the Rival's Barrage there, and also gets to mill an additional 3, I believe. Gets the Blast Mode, which allows him to delete a guy. He's just asking which ones are blockers or not, because he obviously wants to do more on this turn. I use the DarkKnightmon effect here to return 1 into play and then put 1 into hand. And he gains memory from the Beelzemon stuff. He tries to swing, but then he realizes that he can't swing because he hard played it this turn. So not a great situation for him, but what he does here is that he just passes his turn. So I'm feeling very confident at this point for sure. So I go into the Chikurimon in Raising. And at this point, just considering using the DarkKnightmon to go into the Dark Knight. I think this should have cost 3, if I'm correct, because the Chikurimon still is in play, but I think I'm reducing the cost, but it doesn't matter, and we go to game 2. We're now into game 2, and my opponent tells me to start off now. I get a pretty good start of going into the Deadly Axemon, and he has to hard play the Wizardmon, so I'm feeling pretty good in this situation. We both, I think, didn't really get good cards from our mulligan. So, and that's an important thing about these games that are coming up. All of these were being played with the brand new mulligan rule, so just keep that in mind. He goes into the Balmon, trash top 3, but also gets rid, or could have got rid of a level 3, but I don't have one in play. So at this point I'm feeling very confident that I can get rid of the board. So I go into Dark Knight to Digivolve and then delete the Wizardmon, and then that passes him with 1 memory. So he can't do that much essentially with 1 memory. So he plays another Impmon to pass the turn. And at this point, I'm feeling I'm in a very good position. I have a Dark Knight that has 9k 2 checks, and it can also be pulled up as well. So at this point, I'm just thinking like, how much damage could I potentially go for here? Obviously, I can do 4 here if everything goes well. So I swing with a Monitormon first. The reason why I do Monitor first is because of this exact reason. He could potentially, delete a high-level guy, essentially, so I have to go for either one or the other, essentially. It's not great, but it is what it is. So then I go play the Nene, get a search off here, swing with security, doing 2 checks. First check is a wizard, second check is an Impmon, and then at this point, I just play another Izzy to pass the turn, because I think at this point my hand was pretty maxed out, so I want to basically get the best draws I can, essentially. So I put it in the order of Monitor, Dark Knight, and more. Swing at security, get to add it to my hand. Swing at security, it's a what is it? Skull Knight. Jeez, I can't even remember my own cards. He's counting up how much he needs for certain effects, obviously. And so he's got a lot of Death Slingers in his hands, so he goes Death Slinger to get rid of the Dark Knight, but then I get to use his effect. Deliaxmon on play, get to add anything with Knightmon. So at this point, I think the best decision here is, because I think I already had a Dark Knight BT10, so I go into the X antibody here. Maybe? Yeah, X antibody and the BT7 Dark Knight. So I'm at 3, so I'm feeling pretty good, so get to go off again. And at this point, I'm just figuring, is there a way to potentially win this turn? Because it is very likely that I could, maybe. But we'll see how it goes. So I go into the Skull Knight, and then goes to Security in Raising. I then go into Cavalier mode, so I can get an additional 2 checks. Swing has jamming, so it's likely. Nothing comes up, and I swing. Oh no, he has to mill first. Doesn't get anything in the mill, and swing for game.